Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. And welcome to another edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. I am your host, Ken M., and sitting across from me at the table, the intern himself, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
And joining us on the panel this week, you know him from the comics blog, it's the Bry Guy Signal.
I'm back, guys.
Folks, we got a lot to talk about. We took a little hiatus last week from the format. Shout out to Brian Wolf and Fair City Fire. They absolutely crushed the interview. But we got to talk some movies. We got to talk some TV. We got to talk some comics. We got to talk to you about it. The big news of the week, Marvel Studios is having a strong week.
Yeah.
Black Panther debuted in Hollywood. Reviews have been outstanding coming from them.
Yeah, I haven't personally gotten into too many reviews just because I want to go in kind of as fresh as can be. But kind of the general consensus I'm seeing from everybody is it is amazing, and I've seen one person go as far as to call it Marvel's Dark Knight.
That's a little interesting, only from the standpoint, I haven't done a whole lot of reviews. Clark Gregg, you know him from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as Agent Coulson. He said the movie has a lot of laughs in it, so I'm kind of curious, like, okay, Dark Knight wasn't really laughful, but...
Well, I don't mean Dark Knight as in, like, how it is. I mean, it's in, like, that good.
Oh, okay. Then I'm all for that.
Yeah, I've heard nothing. I've been trying to avoid spoilers, too, because I want to go in this with just an open, idea of what I'm going to see, because I don't want it to be, like, so amped up, like it's going to be the greatest movie ever, and then if it's not... which I strongly doubt. I think it's going to live up to expectation. But I want to go in just with an open mind and just take it in for what it is.
And if ticket sales are any indication, people are really excited for it.
Oh, we've had ours for a good couple weeks now.
Yeah, and I know somebody who lives out in California, Los Angeles specifically, and so, of course, you have a couple of big old theaters out there, with 50-plus seats. And he was telling me the other day that he knows people that went to go get their tickets at one of those theaters and that their showings were sold out for the entire day.
That's insane.
But
that's awesome, though.
Oh, yeah. It's projecting to be the highest grossing opening for a superhero movie ever.
And that is definitely saying something with, obviously, the volume of work that's come out over the past years. But I think Black Panther is going to knock it out of the park. I know this was my most excited movie for 2018, if you listen to the 2018 preview show. And I think it's going to live up to the hype. I definitely want to just see a fun movie, and I hope it is that difference maker for Marvel. Because obviously, as we've said numerous times before, Avengers Infinity War is so on a different level of expectation that I think that this movie is going to fly under the radar and definitely take that thunder away.
I was going to say, I can agree with that. And from the standpoint, Black Panther's only one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we all know Infinity War has everybody that we've seen in the MCU, so that is where you could say, like, it is a different level. It's like Infinity War's just there. Black Panther's like, all right, we're getting another solo superhero movie. It's got to raise the bar.
Absolutely.
And it definitely, to me, just from the ads and the trailers I've seen, there almost seems to be like a different vibe to it.
I agree.
Than any of the other previous Marvel movies.
I think that probably comes from the fact it's going to Wakanda, an isolated region, so that definitely adds to it. Is like it's a completely other culture we're going to see in the MCU, whereas like we usually just stay in like New York or other big cities that are like modern cities, like New York City, and then like you have like Sokovia, which is like a little rundown area. Wakanda is just completely different, not only in a different like geological location, it's like cultural wise,
technologically advanced more than any city in the MCU.
Yep.
Which is I just can't wait to see the visuals on this. I think it's going to be amazing, and
yeah.
I think that they've really taken their time to make this a home run, and it's going to deliver. Without question. I'm already going to say I already think it's going to deliver. Obviously, when that movie gets released, we're going to be reviewing that on the show.
Oh yeah.
So stay tuned for that. But another movie, if we're talking about movies flying under the radar, no pun intended, was the Ant-Man and Wasp movie.
Yeah, it's releasing in July after Infinity War.
I guess that means, seeing the trailer, all I could think was, I guess that means Ant-Man and Wasp are going to make it out of Infinity War Part 1, all right?
Spoiler alert.
Well, you think. Now, we might touch upon some spoilers, so if you're worried about the trailer, come back in a couple minutes. But without trying to say too much, obviously the ramifications of Captain America Civil War are felt in this movie. The only thing that really wasn't established from the trailer, at least I could tell, is this before or after Infinity War? There really wasn't a lot of foreshadowing. You didn't really get that much of where they are in the world now.
Yeah.
You just know that this is definitely falling out from what happened in Civil War.
Yeah.
And it's now they're on the run. Hank Pym, the Wasp, and Ant-Man are back in the fold, and we're not exactly sure what they're running from. We're assuming it is the government regime that is now established, tracking down heroes that are not registered under the Sokovia Act.
Yep.
And it's kind of going from there. And if you see the trailer, which I recommend, you don't get a lot. You do get some very cool visuals because obviously you're dealing with Ant-Man, and if you like shrinking and growing, you're going to see a ton of that throughout the movie.
Yeah, that end shot with the Wasp running along the knives having been thrown was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was probably what stood out the most. The Pez dispenser scene was a little. You could sense the Disney in it. That was just for me. I was like, "Yep."
Well, then you've got the scene where they're riding in the SUV. They shrink the SUV. They drive under a car, and they're like, "Oh, we escaped from the bad guys," and then they make the SUV bigger again, thereby flipping their enemies like 100 feet into the air.
Yeah, Braga, what's your take on Ant-Man?
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I was really blown away with the first one in the sense, like, okay, when I saw we were getting a movie for Ant-Man of all people, like, of all the comic characters you get Ant-Man. I was like, how's this going to hold up? But I was a little excited because it was Paul Rudd, and he's a pretty fun actor to watch, and he brought his charisma to the role, and it was just like, it was a really fun movie walking out of there. And it looks like that comes back, like in one scene, again, sorry, spoilers for the trailer, he watches Wasp shoot lasers at two guys, and he's like, oh, I didn't realize you didn't have that technology available when you made my suit. Oh, no, I did.
Yeah. No, the humor is definitely there with it. Paul Rudd is Paul Rudd in this. And honestly, I'll be very, very honest with you. I never thought I would see a successful Ant-Man movie, let alone a sequel in my lifetime.
Yeah, because you look at the character itself. If you don't look at any of his history, any of his backstory or anything, you just look at the character and his superpowers. He's a guy who can shrink and grow. Like, if you look at it, if you take somebody who doesn't know comics and doesn't know the superhero, doesn't know anything, and go, okay, make a movie out of this, they would look at it and go, what do you expect me to do with this?
Yeah, and they made it work.
Oh, yeah.
And it definitely had heart in it, which, like I said, I never thought this movie would be as big and a success as it is. Never. Like, when I first was hearing that they were thinking about doing it, I'm like, why? Of all the things, why would you make Ant-Man, of all the MCU characters you could possibly come up with, into a movie? And, I ate my words.
Well, then I know you and I came out of the movie saying that it was a really good origin story.
Yeah. I mean, it made sense because it divvied away from the comics because they focused on the second Ant-Man, Scott Lang, instead of going into Hank Pym's story, which is just a whole ball of wax that they're not going near because obviously it ties into Avengers a lot. And you just know that at this stage, Hank Pym is kind of in the background, being the mentor role.
Well, that might be something we get explained at least a little bit in this one, because I know the Walt Disney plot summary, if you will, release does say they are going to be dealing with, quote, ghosts of their past. And it doesn't specify whose ghosts of their past that is, so that very well may be Hank Pym's. So they might get at least a little bit, might get into his history.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if they go there. And ironically, you were talking about the ghosts because if you did see the trailer, you did see the ghost of Iron Man villain fame.
Yep.
And Thunderbolts, if I'm not mistaken, one of the incarnations of Thunderbolts anyway, is the villain in the movie, or at least one of them, who is basically a super spy and can phase in and out. And it'll be kind of a very visual enticing role for it.
Yeah.
I guess I would say. I'm trying to find a good word to say. When you see the visuals going between a shrinking person and growing person, somebody phasing in and out, it's going to be something to see. Not exactly sure how you word that other than what I just said.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see a villain other than, the previous movie where it was also someone who could shrink and grow. I mean, you got to throw something else at him besides somebody who can just shrink and grow.
Yeah, because that's what's going to be one problem, I think, with some of the lesser-known heroes is they don't have a rogues gallery. Like, when you go, okay, who's Ant-Man's top 5 villains? Can anybody name anybody other than Yellow Jacket?
No. That really doesn't really apply, though, in, like, the MCU in the sense they can bring anyone in, and plus they can change villain origins all the time. I mean, God, look at what they did in Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin.
Yeah, that one.
Not
It's
touching
like
that one.
that's a one. It's like, okay, he had a great rogues. Iron Man has a good rogues gallery. They're gonna bring in his arch nemesis, and they totally just
They went off the rails with it. That's the
that's
easiest.
the easiest way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you know the Iron Man history of comics and then you see what Iron Man 3 did, obviously it differs vastly.
I'll say even if you don't know the Iron Man comics history, you remember the cartoon series that Iron Man was in, and Mandarin was in it, and in that he's just he'd show up, he'd go around, very intimidating. You watch the movie, that's not at all what he was.
No, it was definitely a different take that I don't think was good.
No.
Iron Man 3 was okay, but in my opinion, there was just a lot left on the table.
Plot wise, at the time, it was really weird. It was a really weird choice. It was an odd movie, but having gone forward in time and seeing where the progression of Tony Stark's character went, the movie made sense.
Yeah. And going forward with that, too, now that Black Panther is going to be coming out before Infinity War is coming out in May, Ant-Man's coming in July rather, sorry.
Yeah.
The timelines could get a little messy.
Yeah, we know for certain that Black Panther does take place before Infinity War because it is known that Bucky Barnes is still on ice, quote unquote, in this movie. And if you go watch the Infinity War trailer, well, clearly he's not.
Now, the one thing I wanted to bring out, I'm pretty sure we're at all 5 Infinity Stones, right?
I think there's only one in question that we are not sure of.
Correct.
That it's kind of like there's some theories, there's some ideas, nothing concrete that has been shown on
Because
screen.
I heard rumors that supposedly one might show up in this movie, but I thought we were at all of them already.
I've heard speculation that it could, or that the last one is in Wakanda. But I'm not sure. Until I see it on screen and get a definitive, here it is. It's kind of fun for me to read, but I don't really put much stock in it.
I thought after Doctor Strange, we got the last one with him having it.
No, if memory serves, there's only one missing.
Yeah.
That there's some theories and there's some speculation where it could be, but nothing's been shown yet.
No, and I think they're going to wait on that as long as they physically can.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if it doesn't show up or get shown until Avengers Infinity War. Because I get the feeling with Infinity War, he's not going to have them all by the end of the movie. He'll have probably 3, I'd say, but I don't think he's going to have them all. You got to leave something for the sequel.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see where they go from there because obviously after Infinity War...
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately for Infinity War, one of those ones from the trailer it looks like he's going to get is going to be the one from Vision's head, unfortunately.
Ouch.
Which I hope that is not the case because I like Vision.
Yeah. So, after that, though, the only movie on slate that after Ant-Man is going to be Captain Marvel. I know some photos were leaked out of the costume.
Yeah, just a couple of brief images of her costume where it's just her on set. I saw a lot of people, I kind of want to get your take on this. A lot of people were saying it kind of looked Kree.
I have my theory. And gentlemen, please correct me if I am wrong because I have my theory of what it was supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
I think it is supposed to be the color it was, and it's a Kree soldier outfit.
Ooh.
If memory serves me right, Jude Law is cast in this movie.
Double checking.
Okay. And if I have to make a guess, and note, I do not know anything specific. I'm just making my own fan assumption. If Jude Law is in this movie, my guess is he would be playing Captain Marvel, who, if you know the history of comics, was the original Captain Marvel with the quantum bands.
Yeah, Jude Law is in the movie.
So my guess is that, unfortunately, he may not make it out of this movie in one piece. His character, that is.
Okay.
And I would assume that if Brie Larson's character of Carol Danvers is going to take over said role, she would take up the costume and mantle. So thus, she would be stepping up in rank to the captain role, and thus the costume would reflect that.
I can see that.
That is my guess.
I can see that. That makes sense.
Bri, any thoughts?
No, not really. I'm going to be honest, I don't really know much about Captain Marvel, so...
It's
Other than she was the leader in the second Civil War comic that they tried doing for Marvel, and then I just had no interest in that, so I didn't pick it up.
No, it's Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers has a very unique history of comics. To get really in depth on would really take a good chunk of an episode. So we'll save it for that. I would recommend doing your own searches about that. But I will say that in recent years, she has risen her profile, I guess, in the MCU, the comics version, and obviously and as Brian was saying with Civil War II, she's kind of taken more of a step-up role in that aspect. So that being said, it's going to be kind of interesting if this is the case, which I think it is, and it'd be kind of an interesting thing because if I'm not mistaken, then this movie actually is set in the 80s.
90s, I believe.
Or 90s?
Yeah.
So it's not in the current timeline either, too. So it's going to be a lot to watch and kind of see.
Does that mean we get to see Blade again?
I think we're going to see that character at some point, obviously not in the Captain Marvel movie.
I was going to say, all seriousness, I would love it if the rumors of a Netflix Blade series were true.
There's going to be a lot of talk coming up with Netflix because obviously in March, Jessica Jones Season 2 comes out. Yes. So thus the next wave of Marvel Netflix shows comes out. So let us know what you think. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPH. What's your take on the Ant-Man trailer? Any reviews from Black Panther? What's your take on Captain Marvel? Hit us up. Let us know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Mike C. from I Am Horror. You're listening to the ODPH, the most killer podcast on the planet.
Coming back for the second segment on this week's ODPH, we talked Marvel movies last segment, and we got to talk a little DC TV, specifically involving the Man of Steel himself, Superman.
Go on.
Now, we talked a little bit about Krypton, which is coming to the Sci-Fi Network in March, and I honestly think it's going to be like Game of Thrones meets Superman.
I've heard that description used in a couple articles I've read online, which I'm all for.
Yeah, I've seen a couple trailers. Braga, have you seen a little bit of the show?
Yeah, I've seen it, and it looks pretty good. Like, I'm all for it. I was a little hesitant when they first announced a prequel to Superman on Krypton. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. But watching the trailers, and when I learned more about what it's about, it's like, okay, this actually has a lot of potential to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I'm completely on board now. Sci-Fi has shown with Happy they can definitely do comic shows right. Happy, which is coming to the season 1 finale this week, and they've been greenlit for season 2, which I can't wait to see on a side note. But getting back to the Man of Steel, so they're going to show his Kryptonian heritage on Krypton, and it's going to be kind of like a little more, I guess, Game of Thrones style, like a little more territorial, war-torn time period, so to speak.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, just, obviously with what's leading up to the destruction of Krypton. But it was also announced this week that they're developing a show based in Metropolis, titled Metropolis, set before the arrival of Superman. And this would be going to DC's new digital service, which is going to have the live-action Titans show on it, coming in 2019. So I guess my question with this is, what is your thoughts on two Superman prequel shows?
Metropolis, I'm all for. Or not Metropolis. Krypton, I'm all for.
Okay.
I'm kind of like Brian. At first, when they announced it, I was like, why? I was under the impression that other than becoming war-torn and eventually exploding, there wasn't much to explore or look at with Krypton. When it comes to Metropolis, I have no interest. Because I guess my only question would be, and we obviously can't answer this until, something comes out about the show. Before Superman, when are we talking before Superman? Are we talking he's on the planet, but he's in Smallville doing, whatever he's doing in Smallville?
Farm boy stuff,
bales of hay, taking care of the cattle, that stuff. Or is this before even he's on the planet? I'm just kind of like, where is this going to go? I have no interest.
I'm going to guess it's probably after he's on the planet and in Smallville. If it's going to be based on Lois Lane and Lex Luthor teaming up, if it's before the planet, before Superman's even on the planet, I don't even think those two are born, or if they are, they're super, super young.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't really know what to think of Metropolis as of just yet. I mean, like I said, I've read a couple things about it, and the only thing I'm really taking away is it's going to be based around Lois and Lex before Superman arrives in the city. And it's obviously going to be done differently than the Sci-Fi show is. The Sci-Fi is a whole different production company, if I'm not mistaken. to me, you had Smallville, which is so iconic
Yeah.
to the random comic fans, and then let alone if we're talking diehard Superman fans. Why do we need this much of a prequel for him?
Well,
That's not involving him, rather.
and for those who haven't seen Smallville, I highly, if you are a Superman fan or you are a comic book fan, I recommend you go watch the series. You can find the entire series on Hulu. They did play around. Let's be real, and I know Brian can vouch for this as much as I can. They did play around and toy around with his history in the show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because before he, by the end of the series, spoiler alert, although not really, it was over a decade ago. By the end of the series, he puts on the cape and the costume and becomes Superman. But before that, he's already taken on Doomsday, Brainiac, Zod, like all these people that in the comics he didn't meet until he became Superman and was in Metropolis. So they played around with the history a little bit, but it was a good series. It was a fun watch.
Yeah, I just wasn't a fan of what they did to Doomsday in that show.
Yeah.
That was like the only one I was like, that was a little meh.
Well, not every show is perfect.
No.
I mean, we've
This is
discussed
true.
many a times. But I think with this, though, I'm not really sold on the idea of Metropolis just reading it on paper. To me, is Metropolis really that, mystique about it, like in comparison to like Gotham City?
Right.
Gotham, and this is what it comes down to, is like a lot of Superman's rogues appeared in Metropolis only because of Superman.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotham was a criminal town, so that's how a lot of those guys rose to power, like Black Mask, Cobblepot. So you could have those people in a show without Batman, and by show I'm referring to Gotham on Fox. And it's like, okay, you can make it work, but without Superman, it's like, what's there really in Metropolis?
Well, and the reason Gotham on Fox works is because like you said, the catalyst for Superman's Rogues Gallery showing up is Superman. The catalyst for Gotham turning to the way it does is when the Waynes are murdered.
Yeah.
The show, if I remember right, because I watched season 1, I didn't watch season 2 or anything after. The season does kind of open with, the parents being murdered, so the catalyst there. So that makes sense. What are you going to do with Metropolis if Superman's not there yet? Or is it just going to be Lex sitting in his office taking care of paperwork?
Or is this before he...
Corporate espionage.
Yeah, is this before he really kind of goes into the quote-unquote super villain role that we see him in now?
The only way you could possibly get me interested in the show and even consider watching Metropolis, and this would be weird to work around it would probably never even happen, get Erica Durance and Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville to reprise their roles.
That's a heck of a leap. I mean, I'd be okay with that.
It's the only way you would get me to consider watching the show.
Yeah, I mean, if I have the opportunity, I'm going to try giving it the first shot because I like giving stuff at least one shot go. But I'm not that amped up to see this. And it's just, Krypton just looks visually different. It looks like it's, I mean, I've not seen any photos yet, and obviously we're just talking the ideas. But Krypton came out of the gate, and I'll admit, I was a little skeptical at first, too.
I think we all were.
Yeah, but then once the first trailers started coming out and you start seeing more from it, it definitely stands out. For me, I'm just like, I'm really not that enthused about the whole backstory of Metropolis because, I mean, that is Superman's home base, but that doesn't make Superman. Batman,
Right.
Gotham City makes Batman.
Honestly, if you want a fun origin story, like this just sort of popped in my head, Martian Manhunter would be a really good one you could open up with for a prequel series, for a backstory to a hero, like show the Martian Civil War.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be a great idea. I mean, if they're going to be expanding more on their characters and kind of, obviously I don't know that much about the new services coming out other than they're doing a Live Titans.
Yep.
But if it does get the opportunity to go explore more characters, I mean, Martian Manhunter should be. Cyborg is another one if they're going to break him away.
I'll say
from Titans.
Martian Manhunter they kind of touched upon during Supergirl.
They still have
They touched on it, but they haven't gotten too in depth with it.
No, we'll talk about Supergirl a little later in the show, but I agree with you. There's such a plethora of characters you can take from and go in different directions and really kind of explore them and get them more familiar with a wider audience. I mean, just for the standpoint of Metropolis, though, helping Superman, I mean, you don't really need to. You know what you're getting with Superman. I mean, he doesn't make the city.
No.
Like I said, where Batman, Gotham City makes him. And it's almost like his best friend and worst enemy.
Yeah.
Because of just how much he is based in that city, and that is what he represents. Superman is so much of a global icon that, I don't know. I mean, unless they're going to start adding to the backstory and kind of revolving around into it.
I mean, Gotham's almost like the relationship he needs to give up, but he really can't.
No. So it's going to be kind of interesting when it comes out. We're definitely interested. Let us know what you think. Is 2 shows about Superman's backstory worth watching? Is it just one? Do you have any interest? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break, talk a little more TV when we come back. You're listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition. Back for the third segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition. And Pad, we got to talk a little TV. What's the biggest show on TV right now?
For me, it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Absolutely. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC.
Yeah, been a great part of the season so far. Of course, as we've mentioned a couple weeks ago, they are trapped in the future, as it were, as a result of the ending of last season. At first they were trying to figure out where they are, when they are. They eventually discovered they're now, I believe it's confirmed, they are like 60 years, 80 years into the future.
Something like that.
It's in that range. And they are in orbit around what is left of Earth. If you've seen the title card, they show Earth as like a giant hole in the middle of it. There's not much left of it. So they are trying to figure out how to get back because they do not belong there. But everyone there kind of views them as, I don't want to say gods or maybe saviors.
They have a reputation of like mythic proportion, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
Some are looking at them as saviors. Some are looking at least one of them as you're responsible for this.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because I like the season. I'm just kind of really puzzled by it.
I only had an issue with one episode. It was the episode, I think it was a week ago. It could have been 2 weeks ago. But they were bouncing back and forth in kind of timelines.
Yeah.
Where I was kind of like, wait, what's going on? And it took me probably about an hour or so to figure out, oh, wait, were they just showing this is what would have happened if they stayed in time where they were in time? I think is kind of how I figured it out. But that to me was the only episode, and that's because I was spending the entire episode trying to figure out what was going on with the time jumps.
Well, they're trying to explain of the whole future prophecy about the one girl that was seeing the visions of what was coming and a kind of a flashback to here we are and trying to figure out a way for them to get back home. I mean, that's one thing that has been a slight bit confusing, I guess, for me too, is just when they do their time jumps, no pun intended, it's not really kind of clear cut where they're going with it.
Right. And then the first time they did that in the one episode, it was jarring because they did a visual thing where they kind of just, if you think of Breaking Bad, when anytime he was in Mexico, it was like a sepia tone.
Yeah.
They did something similar where it was a different tone color-wise, so you could tell this isn't present time, this is, past time. But I wasn't watching for, what's going on? I was like, wait, did this happen already? I've seen every episode. I don't remember this.
Yeah. Now, Braga, you have not been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that much, right?
No, not at all.
It's been good. I want to make sure that it's coming across that I do like the season.
Yeah.
But if you're not really a big fan of time jumps and really kind of going into the future and the alternate timelines, because I think that's what this is turning out to be.
It might be.
It might not be the cup of Java. I mean, but I think it's worth watching though. Nevertheless,
Yeah.
The man, the myth, the legend, Leopold Fitz is finally in the future.
Yeah, which that was real interesting.
Yes, who, I mean, I think he's been the standout character. Him and Mac.
Oh yeah.
I think have definitely stepped up their profile in the shows. And now that he's there and he's kind of found a way to get him back, my question is, I know they have a hiatus coming up in a while, and pretty soon.
Yeah.
As we were talking on break, do they wrap up the future saga, and then where do we want to see them come back to?
I think what's going to happen is they're obviously going to figure their way back to their time, present time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think what will happen, I don't think they're going to drop back into the diner and maybe 5 seconds has passed by. I think what's going to have happened is a significant amount of time has passed. I'm thinking maybe 6+ months, maybe a year or so. And in that time, something has arisen and something has gone sideways fast. Because I think the other thing is, I'm looking at IMDb, they've got an episode coming this week, February 2nd. They're off for a month, and they come back on March 2nd. They have episode 12 on March 9th, and then nothing is listed. What comes out after that, March 9th?
That's going to be the question.
I think you might have something it would not surprise me if, because the movie would come out Thursday night, Friday night, you could have a fallout, as it were, or, they come back and whatever's happened in Infinity War is playing out and spilling out into their universe, kind of like it was with Cap 2.
Wait, did you say March 9th?
Yeah, March 9th.
Yeah, the only
Infinity War comes out in May.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is the future episode dates have
okay.
not aired.
No. You know what? All right, this is what he's trying to say.
Okay.
So, so if they come in the future, they're already in the post-Infinity War
They come back.
time
They
frame.
come back from the future.
Gotcha.
Because you remember back to Cap 2, where the end scene of the episode before the movie came out was where Fury was running and was in the SUV. What I think may happen is they come back and the events of Infinity War have already transpired, and the fallout is bleeding into their universe, much like it was with the fallout of Winter Soldier.
That'd be an interesting take. I think they need to do something for it. I'm not exactly sure what, because for me the bar was set so high last season that I'm just really confused at the direction they're going. But if they do come back, obviously they now know what they caused in the future, allegedly. But I still struggle seeing Daisy Johnson Quake being responsible for making the Earth explode. Like, is she really that powerful of a character?
She's powerful.
She's powerful, don't get me wrong, but this is kind of like a Black Bolt level event.
Yeah, and I think as we know her, the jury's kind of still out, because I don't think she's even gotten her powers fully under grasp. Like, yeah, she can use them effectively and very well, but I think she's still, the pyramid is still buried under the sand, as it were.
Yeah. So, when you take that into perspective, who knows? I think, though, when they come back, hopefully if they're going to take a break like this, they do wrap up the future saga in one shape or another.
I would imagine that.
I have a feeling a cast member's not coming back, too. I don't know who. I just have a feeling that somebody's staying in the future.
That'd be big, because with the exception of Brent Dalton leaving, that cast has really stayed intact.
Yeah, they don't really remove too many characters from the show that often.
No.
They have a pretty tight-knit group. That's my gut feeling, is they're going to definitely take somebody off the show and have them stay in the future, or Cassius, who is the major villain at this portion of the season, is going to take one of them out. I don't know who. I could try making a guess, but
the season's been great this far. It's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, I think it's a gutsy one. I don't really see too much of time travel jumping around in this aspect, like with more of a grounded team, would you say?
Yeah.
So it's definitely kind of a unique concept. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm definitely excited to see it. Obviously S.H.I.E.L.D. has been doing a really good job this season, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see where they're going forward. Speaking of shows coming and going, CW has a show that is, coming back in 2 weeks, I guess, as we're time-stamping this.
Yep.
Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh, boy.
Bry Guy, you into Legends?
Yeah, I haven't seen the mid-season finale, but I definitely want to. I know who shows up at the end of it, and I'm really hoping, spoilers here, I'm really excited that John Constantine is coming back to the CW.
I agree. The one thing about Legends that I guess I have to say is a knock, even though I love the show, I think until Black Lightning came out, it was DC's, CW's best show.
Oh, yeah.
I would agree with that.
I think Black Lightning has taken it over, though. If you haven't seen that, you need to watch that show.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
But with Legends, the one knock I have on the team is they don't really switch members too much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, I don't want to see anybody get fired from a show, but I also like to see a little more mix-up if you're going through time. you don't have the same roster from year to year to year. And obviously with the events of Crisis on Earth X, you don't have Firestorm anymore.
Nope.
And you definitely need to bring in a big name, so to speak, a hero, I guess, to really balance that team out. John Constantine is going to add a definite factor. But the name that I heard was coming to the show, and I'm super, super, super excited about it, is Kid Flash himself.
Yep.
Wally West is joining the show.
I did see that. I think it was IGN posted that he showed him on the actor in his Kid Flash outfit on the set of Legends.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge addition, and I think rightfully so.
Oh, yeah.
Because the one area of Flash which I guess this season has been an improvement from last season. But when they started out, Kid Flash was supposed to be the one taking over Central City and kind of earning his stripes. And it was one and done. And I hate it that they do this every season opener or like whatever the big cliffhanger is, it's resolved in an episode or two.
It was
like Flashpoint at the
Yes.
start of last season. And it's like you could have gone so far with that, but it was done at the end of the premiere.
Well, and it was a one and done, but then also he went off to do his own thing on his own time, and he was back like 3 weeks later.
Yeah, and they never really explained. So unless they're going to say at this time this is when he joined the Wave Rider,
Which they could.
and then he came back, which I'd be okay with. But I'd much rather see the character get developed on Legends because I think that it'd be a little more room to breathe on there.
Yeah.
Because the one area with Flash is you have so many great characters, and obviously you've added the elongated man this season. You really don't have that much time to really develop.
Well, and by and large, the plots you see on Flash are Barry-centric. There's not really a lot of time or room for Kid Flash to grow and shine. I think you can definitely get that. You can grow the character. You can improve the character better on Legends than you could in The Flash.
I agree. I mean, I definitely think that he's going to stand out on the show. I think, rightfully so, because I think the only other kind of characters I would add are the ones that are really underutilized on all the other CW shows. I would love to add Martian Manhunter on that show.
Yeah.
I think he is vastly underused on Supergirl.
It would make sense.
I think it would make perfect sense. Who else do you think should be added on the show? If you could add one member from any of the CW shows, Matt, Bri, and Pad, who do you think? Bri, start with you.
I'm probably going to have to go with Black Canary. I'm always a Black Canary fan, and while there is Sarah Lance on the Wave Rider already, we would actually have someone who could do the Canary cry, and plus Dinah. I always get her name mixed up.
It happens.
Dinah is different from Sarah, and it would be pretty cool. It's like for Sarah to really get to know the person who's taken up her sister's mantle. And I feel like that'd be a pretty cool character arc they could do between the two of them.
I could definitely see that. Pad, who you got?
This might be a little surprise to you guys. I'm gonna say John Diggle, because you can do you can do a twofold thing with this. Diggle could be a very leadership role, a very a cornerstone on that team as much as he is on the Arrow team. You could also, by turn on Arrow, Diggle's been there for Oliver by and large all the time since season 1. He's almost a crutch of sorts. Oliver can depend on him. He knows Diggle will be there. He knows that he can count on Diggle for his help. All of a sudden, that guy that he's used to having been there and done whatever he asks isn't there anymore.
It'd be an interesting dynamic, I definitely would say. I mean, I think it would be very cool to see. I think there's a lot more potential of borrowing different members of the timelines, obviously, to add on that show. And I think if they kind of had more of a revolving cast, I think you could definitely see these characters get evolved and really step up their profile.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPH. We definitely want to know, with the new CW season coming for Legends of Tomorrow, who would you add? Who would you take off? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Mike Pappy from Rye Bread, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Back on another segment of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition. Continuing some discussion from the last segment, going to get into a little bit of Supergirl television. A bit of a shakeup coming in the next couple of weeks with there being so many DC TV shows on TV. What a time to be alive.
Absolutely.
As the schedule sits, Supergirl is airing Monday nights at 8 p.m. The time slot is tradition. Starting on Monday, February 12th through April 9th, Supergirl will be taking a hiatus at that time, and Legends of Tomorrow will be airing their new episodes. Then on April 16th through June 18th, Supergirl will be back in her usual time and place on that show, so mark your calendars as needed. Now, for the recent episodes, Ken, what have you thought of the episodes that have been on the last couple of weeks?
I tell you what, I'm actually happily surprised at how the Legion of Superheroes is coming across TV. I did not see this coming. Now, Brad Guy, I don't know what your take is on the Legion, but I think they're actually getting represented okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely.
Yeah, it's one of those. The Legion of Superheroes, rather. I want to say I don't want to get confused with FX's excellent TV show, Legion. But the Legion of Superheroes is kind of a very weird history. It's a very unique one. It might not resonate so much on the small screen, but I like how Supergirl's producers and writers have done it because they've taken a small handful of them, 3, Saturn Girl, Brainiac 5, and Mon-El, a.k.a. Valor, and really implemented them as kind of a fighting team. And obviously the threat of Rain this season has been, I don't know, hit or miss. I think there's been signs of, okay, this is a really dynamic villain, and then there's been some that have been like, well, let's wait and see.
See, for me, it's the start of something good. It's a good start because I know in the past I've said my biggest criticism of Supergirl was it didn't really have a central focus overarching the season for me to kind of focus on and go, okay, yeah, there's going to be some deviations in the story, but by and large, this is your main focus for the season. It was a great build-up. It was a great introduction of her. I think it's good that they have this kind of central villain for the season that is kind of the big threat going on right now.
And I like it that it's her villain.
Yes.
Not Superman's, not a borrowed one from the Arrowverse or CW-verse or however you want to define the related shows. But it's definitely her own villain, and where they're going to go with it, I don't know. I wonder if they're actually going to do a time jump into the future with the rest of the Legion. Now, that could get very messy because if you know anything about the Legion and how they have like hundreds of members and how crazy they all get it's very unique. I would like to see maybe something like that, but I also don't know how it would pan out on TV.
It'd have to be handled very well. And I feel like with that, I don't care if you have a good writing team behind it. I feel like it's just with hundreds of different heroes, I just feel like it can get very messy very quick.
Yeah, it seems like 100. I might be off on my count, but there's a ton.
I think if they want to go that route, I think the way they could go about it is, okay, yeah, they've got 100 plus or however many superheroes. You don't have to feature them all. You can have them there in the background as extras, but maybe pick 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain ones
have
you
some
small.
Ensign Leibowitzes,
Yeah, because
a few heroes just to get killed off in a.
Yeah, because you're going to have some, especially how they're tying into Doomsday Clock, if I'm not mistaken, that Saturn Girl is currently in the Arkham Asylum, or maybe in the DC Rebirth, maybe not in Doomsday Clock. Sorry, that's my favorite book I've been reading right now, which is excellent, by the way. But with that being said, the Legions are kind of having more bigger profile in the comics universe lately. I don't think they have any plans to bring back a full Legion series that I know of at this point. Please correct me if I'm wrong on social media. But I think for how they're working it with Supergirl, I think it can only help them.
Yeah, and like I said, the build-up with Rain was very, very well done, in my opinion. Slight spoilers if you aren't caught up on the season, but the buildup of, okay, something's clearly going on with this woman. She's not quite sure what. I didn't know if she was going to be, another another Kryptonian who just developed her powers late, a late bloomer, if you will, and she was going to be help Supergirl out. But, just to see her eventually become the villain almost unwillingly. I know, the Earthling that didn't want to turn into, she's like, no, I don't want to do this. For me, it was a great buildup.
Absolutely. Yep, it's definitely over 100. I'm checking different social media websites. At least they have been a member at one point. So when you're talking about that many heroes, you have a lot to work with.
Yeah.
So you can definitely go a lot of different directions with that.
Yeah, like I said, if they really want to go that route, you don't have to give all 100 a speaking part. You can have them there as background extras and maybe 5 or 6 maybe.
Yeah, and it would not be a bad idea to try experimenting with, just to really, draw some more attention to them. And the Legion, like I say, they're a very iconic team in their own right for the DCU. So I don't mind seeing them on TV, but especially if you're going to be doing a time jump that you're juggling around your shows. So Supergirl is going on a hiatus, Legends is coming in for their final stretch, and then Supergirl comes back. Hopefully, the cliffhanger episode coming out on the 5th is going to be one for the record books.
Yeah, you got a feeling we're going to get hit with a few cliffhangers.
Yeah, well, I'm just hoping it really kind of drives home the point, whether it's Rain, takes out some Supergirl, like, sends her into the future by herself or something. Just something. I want something that's really going to resonate and really going to say, okay, I cannot wait for April 16th to hit. Because I know with Legends, I'm waiting because I have no idea how they're coming back.
Neither do I.
Other than they got 2 brand new team members. Technically a third if you count the Captain Cold from Earth X. There's a lot more dynamic going on, and I want to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued.
Yeah, because Flash has been good. Arrow has been very hit or miss, in my opinion, even though I did mark out this past episode, they did mention the Outsiders as a team name.
They did.
Which, if you know anything about the DCU, it's a very interesting team. Batman has some connection with it. Not saying he's coming to the Arrowverse just yet.
Yeah. Ken, I want to get your thoughts with the Arrow proteges striking off on their own. How do you think this is going to go for them striking out on their own?
Very badly.
I'm in the same boat. I personally, and I know I've said this to a couple of people, I think it's going to blow up in their face in the worst way possible. I think they're going to have some successes. They're going to do well for themselves, but it's going to lead to overconfidence and thinking they can handle anything. They don't need. You're already starting to see they don't think they need Oliver. They don't need Team Arrow, as it were, that they can do it on their own. I think it's going to lead to a bit of arrogance, a little bit of overconfidence, and it's going to blow up in their face in the worst way possible.
Yeah, it's also kind of very, I don't know. I don't really see Arrow needing a Team Arrow.
And that's honestly one of my low points with the show is when they kept trying to build up the team like in season 4, and it's like, why do you need a team? In season 1, it was just Oliver with Felicity and Diggle. Then in season 2, you added Roy Harper as the sidekick. You kept him along in season 3, which was fine. It's like, okay, you got the hero and his sidekick. But then you get to season 4 where it's like, okay, we have a whole team now.
For me, it makes sense for him to have a couple of sidekicks because by and large, you look at the missions or things they go to prevent or stop in each episode, it's past the point where it's just Oliver running around taking out a couple of guys in stealth and job well done. It's a multi-layered, multi-part plan. We got to go over here, we got to shut this down, we got to go over to this opposite end of the factory and rescue these guys, and meanwhile we've got part C of this plan where so I think definitely thinks he needs Diggle, he needs another sidekick in the field with him, but I don't have an issue with maybe him having people that he calls on for help every once in a while.
Yeah, once in a while is good. Because let's be honest, no hero can really fight a major challenge by himself all the time.
Yeah.
But I guess for the daily Team Arrow, he's never been a team leader per se in the comics. No. Brian, I know you've read the latest run on Green Arrow. Does he really work well with others?
No, not really.
The book has been written great by Ben Piercy.
Yeah, it's like Oliver really does try to burden a lot of it on himself at times, and so it can really rub people the wrong way. Him and Diggle in Percy's run do not have a good relationship. Diggle tries to shoot him when they get reunited in that run because Oliver just did not. Him and Oliver just did not get along. It's the best way to put it without going into major spoilers and details. So it's like he never has really been a team player. He tries to do it all by himself. And in Percy's run, Black Canary is sort of not really helping him with that because she's much of a loner also. So the two of them in their relationship, it causes a lot of problems, and then it can get messy.
Yeah, I think if they thinned it out a bit, like I said, you can have help every now and then, but I just think for Team Arrow, or unless he's supposed to be the one heading the Outsiders instead of Batman per se to the comics, that's something you gotta do. And honestly, I'm just really not connecting with Caden James as the major villain.
No, I'm not either. But for me, the jury's still out. I'm still, I'm figuring the payoff in the end will be worth it.
I'm hoping so. I really am hoping. I'm optimistic for Arrow because I've been watching since day one. Obviously, season 2 and season 5 have been the bar set for the CW. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 4 has been their bar, which when you can finally get that quality programming, you know that's when it hits home, and you know that that's what you're striving for.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll have some stuff to watch in the coming weeks, so let us know what you're watching. And we're going to close out the show with a little comics news from our two biggest Star Wars fans here. What is coming out this year?
All right, next month, February 14th, Grand Admiral Thrawn is getting his own comic miniseries from Marvel Comics. It is going to be, like I said, starting February 14th, and it's going to be the comic adaptation of Timothy Zahn's Thrawn novel. So this will be a canon comic series featuring everyone's favorite blue-skinned villain from Star Wars.
Now, Brian, have you read the Timothy Zahn Thrawn novel yet?
No, I have actually not. So that's why I'm looking forward to this. So it'll be a way for me to finally read the book because, sometimes you just don't have time to sit down and read 300 pages.
I won't get too in-depth with the spoilers with the book because it's a fantastic read. Timothy Zahn is one of the greatest Star Wars authors to have ever written a Star Wars novel. I think a lot of people will agree with me on that one.
I would. I read his Heir to the Empire trilogy, which is where he introduced Thrawn.
The original Thrawn. So I will say this. The novel is a very good read. It is a very good intro for the Thrawn character. It doesn't go into where he was born, who his parents were, and his upbringing and whatnot. Essentially, the way it starts out is an Empire group of the Empire show up on a planet, and he's there when they're scouting a planet, I believe, and he's on a planet, and they're like, wait, nobody's supposed to be here. Who are you? And then it kind of jumps from there, and it goes, and Thrawn slowly becomes the Grand Admiral you know and expect. He is very much a chess master, if I were to use an analogy, where you are planning for one thing, he's like 8 steps ahead of you.
If you watch Rebels at all, you get the sense like he has a very Sun Tzu approach to how he views warfare. He doesn't just okay, I'm not just here to fight a war. I understand my enemy in every single sense of the way because that's the only way I can truly beat them is not just knowing their military, but...
Yeah, there was one episode of Rebels from the first half of this season where the main characters were escaping a planet, and Thrawn had the planet circled with Star Destroyers. He had them dead to rights, and his first officer has the guns trained on them. And he asks Thrawn for the orders to fire on him because he's like, yeah, we'll get him. We've got him. And Thrawn goes, no, let him go. And the first officer looks at him, what? Why? And he's like, I'm playing a larger game.
It sounds like a very interesting take on the character. I'm excited to see it. I mean, granted, it's not Boba Fett, but I'll still give it my attention.
Boba Fett's coming, maybe.
He had better because he's long overdue.
Hey, he might show up in Han Solo. You never know.
Yeah. Plus, if Disney wants to make a bunch of money, you just got to slap Boba Fett's name onto a movie or series or whatever, and it's going to sell.
Yes, because we'll be promoting it heavily on this podcast.
Yes, we definitely
for further notice. No, but I definitely am excited. I think Marvel's done a really great job with their Star Wars line. I heard they're getting back the rights to Conan the Barbarian too. So
yeah, which I found that interesting. I didn't know they didn't have the rights to that.
No, a lot of that they
I was gonna say Dark Horse has the rights to Conan right now.
Right, but Marvel did make an announcement they are getting him back. So it's kind of interesting to see that Marvel is kind of acquiring some older properties they used to do business with, and now they're bringing back to the fold. So be something to watch in the comic news. Other than DC Metal Fallout is coming. And some big shakeups coming this summer, too, with that.
I was going to say we got only 2 more months left of Metal. We got Metal number 5 just came out today, actually. Next month, we get Road to Metal, Dark Knight's Wild Hunt, which features all of the Dark Batmans coming together under Barbados's rule, from how it sounds. And then in March, we get the conclusion with Dark Knight's Metal 6. And then after that, Scott Snyder is going to do a Justice League series, which will feature all the repercussions of Metal.
Yeah, obviously everybody knows I'm a super, super big fan of Scott Snyder, and I cannot wait to read that. Because, let's just face it, him and Capullo's run on Batman, you need to go get.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. I could rant and rave about that, but folks, you don't want to hear about that right now. We've talked a little movies, we talked a little comics, we talked a little TV. Any more recommendations for this weekend, gentlemen?
Yeah, I got a little recommendation. A series on Netflix came out last year, A Series of Unfortunate Events. It's based off of the book series of the same name by Lemony Snicket. First season was 8 episodes, about an hour apiece, and it goes through 2 episodes for each book. So it covers the first 4 books in the series. Season 2 premieres March 30th, starring Neil Patrick Harris as the main villain. It is a great series. I really loved the books as a kid when I was growing up. Very little dark, not too dark, but Neil Patrick Harris knocks the role out of the park. Highly recommend you watch season 1 before season 2 comes out.
All right. Bry Guy?
I'm going to go with on Friday, Netflix is coming out with a new show also. It's going to be called Altered Carbon. It's for those of you who are a big fan of the anime Ghost in the Shell, and also those of you who are a fan of the American Blade Runner, it's definitely got a real cyberpunk look to it. Basically, a guy from what I understand, he comes back from the dead almost to basically be a private investigator, and he's been gifted like enhanced abilities in order to do his job more efficiently, and it looks really, really cool.
Yeah, I saw the trailer the other day, and it looks very interesting.
And that was actually my recommendation as well.
Ooh.
So great minds think alike. So definitely go check those out. Let us know what you're up to this weekend. Any movies, TV, comic news you want us to discuss, hit us up on that hashtag ODPH EE. And for the Bry Guy Signal, Padawan J, I'm your host, Ken M. We thank you for listening to the ODPH. We'll see you next time.